Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled, on the road in sunny Palm Beach, Florida.
Yes,
your
one of my
home
favorite
state.
places, yes.
And Mercy and I were invited to speak to the Palm Beach Republican Company. And your stereotype...
Company? No, club.
Club. Your stereotype might be that these folks are kind of sitting back. They live in this beautiful environment, and it was a little more low key, but instead, wow,
Fiery group of people.
Fired up activists.
Ready to take on what needs to get done to make sure that Republicans win, not only in November of this year, but also for the presidential election in 2024. I got to tell you, I felt great hope, and I think that they're ready to take on the fight.
So watch what our remarks at this great club, and let us know if you're ready for the fight.
So we all went through this story collectively of the takedown of America, really, for lack of a better term. I always used to say Democrats wanted a little less Constitution and a lot more government, and we realized, no, that's not what they want. They've embraced this ideology that somehow America's bad. So Mercy and I went through this in a very kind of personal way, because you had the gall of saying you would work for Donald Trump, and then a lot of our former political friends were like, why would you go work for someone like that? I mean, that's terrible. And it just kind of started there. We had people, when he first spoke at CPAC as a candidate, that started a pressure campaign. That was the beginning of Never Trump, and they wanted us to uninvite him. And I thought, well, there's nothing more un-American than uninviting a major candidate for the presidency. Of course he's going to speak, and it just got started. And it was hard in the beginning. I kept thinking it was going to get better. It never got better.
No, and with it came the fact that you were going to be placed on an execution list if you worked for Donald Trump. You would have, and that was Antifa, and then BLM made sure that they kept a hold on where you lived in case they needed to track you down because you were part of the Trump campaign. So just think about that when you have 5 kids that you're trying to raise privately, and the fact is your name is being put out there because then they also want to make sure you don't get a job after you worked for Donald Trump. But yet we knew at the time, and when I was asked to join the administration, and we talked to the girls about it, and I talked to Matt about it, and Matt said, look, we have to make sure this president succeeds. It's important that he has good people around him, and we're going to support you and back you up. And it was a sacrifice for the family, but we didn't realize that it was going to be a huge price that we were all going to pay for supporting what I would say is the most successful president we have had in our lifetime. There is no question, and I had the honor of working for 2 presidents, and President Trump, what I loved about him is that he kept his word time and time again. And he taught us, as Amanda said, to fight, that we cannot stand down, especially not right now. I'll tell you something, when the media would walk in, because of course, he at least answers questions to the media, unlike Joe Biden, who's like handshaking in the air. No, President Trump actually would let the media come in, they would ask the tough questions, and he would answer each and every one of them. And he told us the same thing. Because why? Because we were right when it came to our policies, how we can make sure that our country could prosper. How can we make sure that every American could live the American dream, ensuring that our kids would get quality education, ensuring that we would have a strong economy, ensuring that we were energy independent. And with it, we also learned the ugly side of the press. And the ugly side of the press was there is something called fake news, and it's for real. So these were my encounters. I used to be in the West Wing in the tiny little office, and the reporter would come in and say, so, you were in a meeting. Okay, yeah, I've heard about this meeting. So what happened in the meeting? So I'd share what happened in the meeting, and then he'd go, well, that's not what my source said. And I would be like, oh, who's your source? And they'd be like, a source close to the White House. And I'd be like, wait a second. Like, this person's not even working in the White House, and yet you're going with that information, although I was in the meeting and you have several people telling you the same thing. That is right, we're gonna go with the source close to the White House. And that's what we dealt with every single day. Their goal was to destroy every single one of us in that White House. They wanted to pit one person against the other. They wanted to make sure there was enough distractions and enough when it comes to the Russian hoax so that we couldn't focus on the business of the American people. But yet the president was unwavering. He would not allow them to take the narrative. He kept pushing forward by doing what was the right thing to do. One of my favorite moments, which actually the president brought up when we saw him last, he talked about, we were in a meeting with Mexican officials. This was during the time that we needed 2,000 more individuals, Mexican security at the border to stop the influx of illegal immigrants. And I remember the president said, we're gonna put tariffs on Mexico. And all the free trade people were like, oh, what, tariffs? No, we can't. The Mexicans are gonna be so upset. The president's like, we're moving forward with tariffs. They have to provide me with security at the border. Guess what? The Mexicans showed up in less than an hour to the White House to meet with our staff. They knew the president meant business. And guess what the president got? 2,000 Mexican security officials at the border to stop the influx of illegal immigrants. He tells the story of the Taliban, where he's meeting with the Taliban leaders, and it was Taliban and it was the Afghan government. It was during the time that they were trying to make sure there was some stability in the region. And he talks about how the Taliban, he has a picture of the Taliban leader's house. And he shows the Taliban leader his house. And he's like, sir, why are you showing me a picture of my house? And the president goes, you know why. Because he would have bombed that Taliban leader's house if they would have done something that would brutalize or disrupt the Afghan peace process. That was the president, that is the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
You better be careful because
sorry.
you just impersonated him.
No, you're better at impersonating him than I am.
And,
so much better than
a comment. But so we've seen what's gone on in the country for people like yourselves who are simply standing up and expressing themselves politically. You wear a MAGA hat, you can lose a job. You can say you can't be a part of some institution. So what Amanda brought up, this idea of protecting the victims of cancel culture, we, in the book that Mercy and I worked on, that's out and we'd love you all to get it, it's called The Desecrators. And the reason why we call it The Desecrators is because cancel culture just gets a part of it. Cancel culture is this political term where you can get kicked off Facebook, or they can say you can't say that because it's a, what are the conspiracy theory or whatever their slurs that they use. But what's going on in this country is much more sinister because it's much more evil, right? So the idea of desecration, taking what is holy and defaming it, and destroying it, and spoiling it, that's really what they're trying to do. And we witnessed this firsthand as we were dealing with President Trump, you inside the White House, me at CPAC, and we had this, he's running for re-election, and we had one case of coronavirus at CPAC, and it later turned into 2 cases, and all of the media basically said we had started an international super spreader because 2 cases out of 10,000 people in a big sweaty ballroom. And I remember how mad you got at me because I was like, it's only 2 cases out of 10,000. This thing must be harder to get than they're saying.
Schlapp, it didn't start at CPAC, it started in the Wuhan lab, but let's be real.
That's right, it started in the Wuhan. But what I learned is this, as we were getting just pummeled, and I really was worried about the lives of these 2 men who were in ICU, and I was getting calls all day long from other people that said, why didn't you do a better job of protecting us? Like, why didn't you guys have more stations to wipe your hands and everything else? And I was trying to explain to them to turn off the television, to stop getting into a panicky mess because of the Chiron, right? Because we were experiencing this. We were all in it together with 10,000 people. Nobody died. That told us a lot. It didn't mean it couldn't be lethal. It just meant that it wasn't what they were saying. We were the real life experiment. And I got on the phone with one very prominent conservative editor, who you all would know, but I won't use his name. And we're going back and forth on their irresponsible story about how we started off this super spreader. And I was like, how can you say that? Like, what's the definition of a super spreader? How can one person be the definition of a super spreader? So we're going back and forth. Finally, he goes, you know what, Matt? You're right. You're getting a bum treatment on this whole idea that you did something to spread coronavirus. I mean, literally, there were these stories, remember? Me shaking hand with Ivanka. They close up on our hands and they do like a red circle around it. And it's like, this is when Schlapp gave Corona to Ivanka. Me with the president. This is when he gave it to President Trump. This is when he gave it to Jared Kushner, whatever. They were all like I was like, I used some colorful language. I was like, this is crap. And he goes, you know what, Matt? It is crap. But that's what you get for supporting Trump. You're going to have to deal with it. And a lightning bolt went off, which was the rules were going to change. It didn't matter what was right and what was wrong, what was fair and what was unfair. They wanted to take him down because what he was doing was so obnoxious to them. So we decided that we needed to tell our own story.
That's right.
And you were a big part of that.
So it's really Matt's book. I only wrote the introduction, and I helped
and did all the editing
both.
and told me not to put that in there.
That's
you did
true.
It's
That's
not
true. And it was good because he had Corona at the time, so I had full control of the editing process.
That's right.
He was just on the couch, and I just edited the book.
True.
But in my introduction, I talked about the front porch conversation. And I'm sure you all have these conversations, whether it's at the dining room table or it's on your front porch. And Matt and I caught ourselves during COVID when it was lockdown craziness, mask craziness. I was literally running part of the campaign for the communication shops for Donald Trump and his campaign out of my house because the comms director, his wife pretty much kicked him out of the house because she's like, you're being exposed to people that might have COVID. So he ended up in my house. We developed 2 studios. Then I was educating 5 children, trying to do that during COVID. And the one who handled it the worst, Matt Schlapp. He was the worst. We had a thing going that if you handled it the best, you were first place. If you were handling it the worst, it was 7th place. Schlapp got 7th place. This was voted by all the children every day. He was so mad. He was so pissed. He couldn't believe that our businesses were closing down, that everyone was scared out of their mind. He just couldn't believe that we would cave in so easily to the government and to Dr. Fauci. And he couldn't handle it. He was so mad about it.
We have 2 dogs. I actually scored behind the dogs most days, and they were handling it just fine.
One of the dogs' name is Hunter, and we haven't changed it yet. He's the chocolate
He
lab.
does
He's
not have a
adorable.
laptop.
No.
So this is how breakfast would start in our house. I come down, boxer shorts, t-shirt, angry, telling my kids, you can't believe these jerks. Everything is a lie. You're not going to die of this thing. You should be at school. Why are you here? The mask doesn't do any good. Blah, blah, blah. Just started. 7 o'clock, and it went all day long. And they would come into my office. And my other problem is I had to get rid of my number 1 addiction, television. Love it. I've watched it. It's what I do. It's my career. I watch news. I consume news. I want to know what's going on. I realized part of this whole idea of the desecration, these screens we all have that we're so addicted to, we got to figure out a way to get off of them. They're tracking us, they're communicating to us, and I didn't really realize it until that moment. I realized if there's that much lying going on, even with stations that a lot of us like, but there was so much disinformation going on that we had to turn it off. And then we had to figure out how to deal as a family. What do you do as a family when not everyone's looking at a screen? That's kind of tough. Eventually, I described our family becoming like a little house on the prairie, not because we're so perfect, but we would literally read books aloud.
Yeah.
We read the Bible aloud. The kids learned how to play the guitar and the ukulele. We would sing.
And we prayed. And we read scripture in the morning. It was the first thing we did. And we started to realize, okay, you look at history, you look at the great kings, you look at the great queens, and you know what? They survived. They get through, but they turned to God for courage and faith and strength. And that is where we need to go. And we realized that we were only going to get through it if we made sure God was the center of our family, the center of our household, and making sure that we were able to know that we were not alone in this journey. And part of it is that Matt talked about this in the book. It's spiritual warfare what's going on. These guys, they hate God, they hate our country, they don't like what any of us stand for. And you know what? It's what Matt talked about, the desecration, not just of the institution, it is the desecration of the family and our children. To try to convince a 5-year-old boy that it's okay if he becomes a girl, that's simply immoral and wrong, and we have to push back and stop it. And parents need to keep speaking up. We need to protect the innocence of our children. We need to protect our churches and families, and we cannot allow the government to come in and take it over. And that's the key of what Matt talked about in his book.
So, once again, it's a great honor to be with you today. We've come and sat in the chairs and listened to other speakers because this is a really great club. I love what Larry and Sue do at Club 45. We've also been Where is that? Down there, up there, over there? Up! It's down there? See, I'll never get it right. We are inspired. I just came back from Kansas. I was so inspired. It was a tiny little town and not as many people as are here tonight, but they so love their country and they're so ready for the fight. We know that you guys are at Club 45 and you inspire us, and we want to take your questions. So, should we ask some questions? Anybody have a question?
I actually want to say I'm a personal witness of what this man and his wife can do. Actually, I was supposed to be at Floyd Mayweather's birthday party because we have the same birthday.
Wow.
Sorry.
You made a bad choice.
He's one of my clients. He's actually one of my clients, but I'm going to say this. I came to CPAC not expecting to get the treatment that I gave. And when Mercedes, his wife, and when this man talk about what it means to wear this hat. Amen. Hold on. Because they don't know what it took for me to be here today. And for me to be where I come from, and for this man to honor me, and for his wife to honor me at CPAC, and for me to have the experience, that's why I'm here today. Yes, I'm backing Bonji for Congress because he's a great man. But I want to say this. This man changed my life because he showed me something that nobody can show me, respect. And when I came to CPAC, it wasn't about race. It wasn't about the red. But he showed me that this American dream is real. And when I came, I was already elite before, so I'm nobody's ghetto project. I'm nobody's patronized situation. Oh, I'm elite, and I earned that every day. From day one, I earned it. But nobody knew it, but he did.
Oh.
Can I say something back to you? We've been having these fights, friendly fights, as a couple.
Wait, just because you have the mic and I don't, it's not very fair.
I got you where I want.
What is this, like, fight?
The fact is this: when we took on Black Lives Matter Incorporated, what we called it, which was we could see early on that this was another elite institution funded by the same leftist groups that really didn't care to make the lives of people of color any better. I often say with the $90 million that was raised so fast over the summer, did anybody get a scholarship? Were there any laptops? Any after-school programs? Any black pastors get money for? No, it was just, as I call it, Black Lives Matter Homeowners Association. They took the money and they ran and they bought houses, but there was a consequence for making sending these tweets I sent, which I attacked Black Lives Matter not on race. I attacked them on burning down churches, defacing Jewish cemeteries, defacing statues of Jesus and Mary. What is this? This is desecration, right? This is just the destruction of things. And when you did it, there was a big consequence to it. And oftentimes people would say to me, Matt, we love your message. You're the wrong messenger. We need to have people of color be the messenger. We need to have women be the messenger. And I agree. No, I agree. It's true. It's good, sound communications. But I'm going to tell you something. We all have to be the messenger.
Right after the first of the year, I read two important books: Laptop from Hell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Red-Handed. Now, I've been shocked that it took almost 3 months before the news media started to really cover the crime syndicate that the Biden family is involved in. Biden's family they are getting money, actually. If you look at the contracts that are identified in the books, he's getting kickbacks from the oil prices that we have, from the Chinese deals, the Russian deals, and some of the previous Ukraine deals. Why is the media dragging their feet on this story?
Well, the media wanted Joe Biden to win. That was their only goal. And I remember on the campaign, it was probably the first or second debate, and I was one of the spokespeople for the campaign, and I remember I bring up this question to the media where I'm like, why aren't you not covering, this is on air, why aren't you not covering the Hunter Biden story? There's enough facts, or at least ask questions. And they said, there's not enough information or evidence for us to pursue this story. They hid it. Big tech was part of this scam, and their whole goal was to make sure that Joe Biden was unscathed in this process.
Hello, Matt, Mercedes. Good to see you both.
Good to see you.
Thank you for everything that you do. While you're in this room with many amazing people, can you talk to them about the importance of this primary election, which is August 23rd, and why it is important for them if they go back north to possibly vote by mail or absentee?
Well, I would just say, to me, this is going to be an amazing, we just wrote a piece about this on the way down here, but this is going to be an amazing election because I believe this is the beginning of the turnaround. I think the American people, we live in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Virginia is not a red state. Virginia is a blue state. Every statewide elected official was a Democrat, and not even just like a moderate Democrat like the old days, like real hard left. They had the legislature, they had everything. They had everything until they started doing Zoom and Doom with our kids, and parents started listening in on these schools, and they were like, and it was not just public schools, private schools, elite schools. They started listening in, and they realized this utter crap that was being pushed from 1619 to gender confusion to just a bastardization of our history, what America is about and what it stands for. We had actually a pleasant experience with our kids, but a lot of our friends did not. And by the way, when your government calls you a terrorist for simply wanting to know what's in your kid's library or what's in the curriculum or the syllabus, we're in a bad place. And I just feel like if you look at Democrats who have cops in their family, they don't want them defunded. If you look at Democrats who have military members in their family, they know the military keeps us safe. They know that the military shouldn't be like sending out videos about choosing gender and stuff, but they should be sending out videos scaring people like Vladimir Putin, which we don't spend any time doing anymore. And so I just feel like there is this outpouring, and I think primaries are very important. I'm a believer in primaries. You want to make sure you get the right candidate out of it. There's some really incredible primaries going on around the country. But I would simply say we made a big mistake as a party. Everything was about the presidency, and it's important. And everything was about the United States Senate, and we found out they don't do very much. And we forgot that the people that do a lot are sheriffs, school board members, election commissioners. Some states elect these folks, some states they're appointed, but this is really where the action is. So I applaud you for running. I think we got to get real local, and it's not going to be about taking over Washington and pushing it down. It's going to be about taking back our communities and then changing the country.
Thanks for being here. I'm also a member of the Black Lives Matter Death Threat Club. Back in November 2015, when I was supporting then candidate Trump, I was on CNN and made a comment that Black Lives Matter was a farce. So I discovered pretty early on that these guys were not what they were supposed to be. But my question is this. You have a guy in the White House that continually, blatantly is setting out strategically to destroy this country by what's going on in our southern border, what went on in Afghanistan, so many other things. Why someone isn't stepping up and saying this is an act of treason. He needs to be removed. Now, I understand that we don't have a majority in the House, we don't have a majority in the Senate. Those are the two tools that probably should be utilized to be able to do that. But is there some other mechanism? Because, and I know the alternative behind him isn't much better, but this guy is an absolute maniac.
Maybe we do 2 for 1, get rid of 2 at the same time.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I don't know how many of you still have Democrat friends. I know we have very few because things have gotten so divided. But even with our Democrat friends, quietly, they're petrified. They're like, we have no bench. They're really nervous about Biden and his state of mental health. They're even more concerned about Kamala because she has underperformed, to say the least. And so there really is this major concern. I will tell you, I don't see a Mitch McConnell taking any sort of action of impeaching Biden. I will tell you that Jim Jordan, as chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House, now there is someone who's a complete fighter, and it will be interesting to see what they move forward in terms of investigations, especially on the Hunter Biden situation.
I think that with the Hunter Biden story getting the legs it's getting, back to the two questions, I think that the Republican majority in the House won't want to say it, but they will be forced to make this decision on impeachment or not. And I think it's going to get harder and harder for them to not embrace it.
Well, we have this great documentary coming out, The Culture Killers. Schlapp, give us a preview.
Yeah, Jason Meath does a great job, and it's CPAC's latest documentary, and it tells the story of what's going on with the desecration of America. All these stories about everyday Americans being canceled, losing jobs, being silenced on social media, and just being, bullied and humiliated by their government or by these elites who run these institutions. It tells the story and hopefully gives us hope about how we're going to push back on the cancel culturalists and what we can do as a country. One of the things we're doing at CPAC is we've started this First Amendment Fund, which is a part of our C3, and we're raising money to try to defend those who don't have wealth and don't have status and power but are being canceled, and it's just wrong and un-American.
Let's go ahead and play the trailer.
There's really a great desecration going on. Anything that's good, anything that's holy, anything that's truthful is being attacked.
There is no end. These people will never get tired. They will never stop until you stop.
The land of the free.
More than half the registered voters saw their freedom threatened by a growing cancel culture.
Under siege by an enemy from within.
The Black Lives Matter movement is a Marxist organization.
We will burn down this system and replace it, all right?
They do all have one thing in common, and that is an internet mob mentality.
Troubling allegations fired after accusations of racism, a modern-day witch hunt.
Another challenge to free speech. They'll harass you, they'll vilify you.
Cancel culture is real, and it's coming to a neighborhood near you.
You will lose your job, you'll be kicked out of the store, you won't have your place in society. They want you to be quiet.
What's been shocking to watch is that the press, they're part of cancel culture.
The New York Times fired their editor because he dared to run an op-ed from a Republican senator.
Ultimately, they don't want to debate. Free speech is unhelpful to them.
I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach.
Calling parents domestic terrorists.
This is an unlawful arrest. I have a First Amendment right.
If we take over these school boards, we can combat the ridiculousness and the racist aspects of critical race theory. They canceled the President of the United States when it was my father.
We've got terrorist groups like the Taliban, and they have a Twitter account, but an American president does not.
This week, Twitter and Facebook under fire.
Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report?
We cannot sit back. We've watched in history this happen before. This is where we've got to stand up and not allow this to go on.
This is the fight that we were put on this earth to make.
The Culture Killers.
Even this conversation you're having with me right now on Twitter would be banned. I mean, this is like beyond Orwell now.
Well, we'll make sure we'll let you know once the movie's up and running so that you can watch it and share it with your friends. We're also going to be holding premieres across the country.
Yep.
So we'll keep you posted on those as well. We're very excited to do our first premiere at Mar-a-Lago this weekend, and it's going to be an exciting time. And that is it for today. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to keep watching America Uncanceled. Good night.